number 6 on our 100 heads challenge, and I'm bored. But that's a good thing. No, really, it is a good thing because it means my mind is finally ready to consider creating something original again. But we're not quite there yet. And I feel like a lot of you guys who watch my channel might be at this stage in your art journey where you feel like you can really nail a photo study and you want to start working on some original character work, but you're not quite ready to do it yet. In today's video, we're going to take a look at how we can bridge that gap. As a side note, thank you so much for 12,000 subscribers on this channel. It is still amazing to me that so many of you enjoy watching what I literally sit down and do in my bedroom every day for all of time. But it is amazing, and thank you so much for being here. And also a special shout out to all my wonderful patrons, because I will take every opportunity to show my gratitude to you guys who really support my work through everything. So thank you so much. Alright, so today we're going to work on head number 6 of our 100 heads. And of course we will do a study, like a literal one-to-one photo study. But then I want to talk to you about 4 different variables that you can play around with to turn any photo study into an original character. Of course, you can play around with these variables and see what you come up with if you're just doodling, or especially if you want to work on some variations on specific design briefs, this is a really great exercise to try out. It's literally 4 simple details, and we're going to use very basic painting techniques and come out with 4 very different looking characters. So if you're excited to dive into this character design exercise, then make sure you give this video a big thumbs up. Comment below if you'll be trying this technique out, and make sure you subscribe to my channel because starting next week, we're diving into the best time of year. The real ones know already. Alrighty, let's dive into 4 variables that can turn any study into a unique original character. So as with the rest of the challenge so far, we're going to first do a pretty standard study. This reference really spoke to me because not only is it a wonderful lighting scenario with high contrast, I also really love the variety of skin tones that we get to work on here. You have the bright peachy oranges in the bright half of his face, the deep saturated reds in the shadows, but then there's the even darker shadows that pull an ashy, desaturated, almost green tone. Plus you have the interplay of warm highlights in the face and cool highlights in the body. Now, I tried to work with brush economy again here, and while I did struggle to limit my brush strokes to a small number, I definitely did try to paint a lot more mindfully. If you guys have no idea what I'm talking about, I did a video a couple weeks ago exploring the idea of brush economy and challenging myself to paint more mindfully and with as few brush marks as possible. The video is up here if you want to check it out later. Obviously, I went a little too pale with the shadow tones at the beginning, and I think it looks way paler than the reference because the brown I used was also very desaturated. It's okay though, I did fix it eventually. I did have to liquefy and move his eyes around a lot. I think it was the angle that tripped me up a little. I painted his eyes too large and too low on the head, which is definitely a style habit I've developed over the years, and I need to learn to put it aside when I'm painting realism. Right, do you see how adding a little bit of saturation to those shadows really makes them look a lot darker? I think it's because the depth of your shadow isn't so much about the actual objective value of it, but rather about the tone of it in relation to the highlight tone. It's all about the contrast. Also, is it just me, or does this guy look like a cross between Shamar Moore and Denzel? Am I just fantasizing? Yeah, maybe. Anyway, I wasn't too worried about really nailing the hair or the clothing and jewelry, because here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna use this study as a base and change 4 attributes in a very specific order to create 2 vastly different characters. And then, this is where the fun happens, we're going to mishmash it all up and create a 3rd original character by picking and choosing what to alter. And spoiler alert, that one was definitely my favorite, so stick around and watch the whole thing. Alrighty, so here's our base study. Nothing fancy, it is a head and some shoulders, no knees or toes. Now we can make him into something new. Okay, for this bit, I'm gonna try and show you the next 2 paintings side by side so we can really see how vastly different the characters turn out by changing the same attributes. The very first thing we're gonna change is the colors. More specifically, the colors in the hair, skin, and eyes. You don't necessarily have to have a plan, but it always helps to have a general idea of where you want your characters to go. For this first guy, I wanted to involve a lot of blue in his character because all that orange was really calling my name. Blue and orange are natural complements, and I thought we could definitely use some smaller shapes. So what if we really push a super saturated, glowy blue to draw all the attention while also balancing out that warmth? I gave him some blue purple hair, and I definitely gave him some super glowy blue eyes. Literally just changed the color of his iris and then airbrushed some blue in the shadowy parts of the eye sockets. I didn't also want to change his skin because that would have taken away from how supernatural the blue glow is. So instead, I gave him little glowy blue gashes, scales. Those things at his throat. I put a super light, almost white blue in the center of them to make them look neon. For our second version, I went the other way, starting by dyeing his entire skin purple. But it was too flat, so we needed color variation. I thought maybe the deepest areas of shadows could pull more blue, but then the areas of highest blood on the surface, like the ears, cheeks, and nose, could show up a little more green. Like, maybe this guy is from a planet where the sun is blue and everyone has blue-purple flesh and green blood. I'm just airbrushing these colors in on a new layer set to color blend mode. Then I thought, because the skin is like an inverse of human skin, what if the hair is as well? So since this model naturally has very dark hair, we're gonna paint it super light here, like a very light gray or white. The eyes, however, were a choice. I decided on yellow because it is the natural complement to purple, but just to really make him different to our first character, I painted his whole eyeball yellow. Yeah, I think that's pretty dang cool. Okay, 2 vastly different characters just by changing up the colors. Let's take it another step further. Now, this is where we start to make some decisions. What choices do our characters make when it comes to how they look? Think about how much thought you and I put into how we look. Like, damn bro, I spent like an hour getting my face on for a 2-minute intro and outro for this video. So obviously the choices your characters make will define how they are perceived out in their world. This includes their hair, their outfits, their accessories, piercings and jewelry, anything they carry on them like a weapon or a tool. All of these make up the image that they project out into the world. And as artists, we get to use these choices to tell a story. So for our first guy, I'm getting the vibe of a young, futuristic, druid type character, like he was born with the power, but prefers simplicity. So we won't make his outfit super elaborate, just what looks like a robe with not much else underneath, and a bunch of piercings on his face and ears, but they're pretty simple, nothing too elaborate. A quick bunch of pretty basic extra elements, and suddenly we have a story going. This is a gentle, simple soul. For a second guy, I thought maybe we go a lot more macho. I don't know why, but his face was just screaming shaved sides and curls up top. And I'm a generous parent. If my children ask for something, I make it happen. At first, I thought this had a nice alternative artsy vibe. So I first put like a stylus behind his ear. Then I thought maybe he has a cut through his eyebrow and also a large diamond earring in his ear. And then I had to give him a chain, like maybe it has dog tags hanging off it. And then he spoke to me. That is no artist. That is a 32-year-old named Vincent, and he is a mechanic. So that stylus had to go, and it was replaced by a poorly painted spanner. I was too lazy to go look for references. There he is, there's my Vinny. Now we have two vastly different characters, a lot of which actually comes from their choices more than just their base attributes. Isn't that so interesting? Let's go a little deeper now. Now, if you've ever played The Sims 4 with CC on, you know that skin details make a huge difference to your character. So that's things like freckles, moles, scars, makeup, and tattoos. So let's give these guys some. For our druid guy, you know he needs freckles, and magical ones at that. So I gave him some bright glowing freckles, kind of like the Na'vi have in Avatar. I gave them some color variation to make them super dynamic rather than just looking like painted on white spots. Plus, I thought he could have some really interesting face paint, maybe some tribal looking stripes the same color as his robe. I also gave him some very thin chains around his collarbone area because it was too many big and medium shapes there and no small ones. These are just tiny details and they are super quickly done, but they really flesh out your characters and add life to them. Now for our mechanic. Of course, if he is this macho, he has to have a scar. Maybe that slit through his brow wasn't a vanity choice. Maybe it was a workplace incident, potentially involving a circular saw, but he told me not to mention it for lawsuit reason. I thought it could be a super subtle scar, but then it also ends in a chunk of missing ear. Gnarly, but it tells us more story. This guy's been horribly injured while working on machines, but he's still got that spanner behind his ear. He definitely still works on them. This man fears nothing. So, of course, he has to have the 90s tribal tattoo all the way across his back, overlapping both his shoulders. I just pasted in a PNG of a tattoo. Of course, it had the cursed checkerboard baked into the image. Anyway, I isolated the black ink and warped and overlaid it into place. And yep, that's him. He is now very alive. So up until this point, we've changed the colors of their skin, hair, and eyes, changed their choices in terms of hairstyle, outfits, and jewelry, and we've added skin details like scars, freckles, and tattoos. To tie it all together, we're gonna add one tiny extra detail. For our fourth step, all we're gonna do is add one non-human characteristic to each of our characters. With the druid, I thought a really fun detail to give him would be a pair of tusks. We usually associate tusks with brute force characters like orcs or ogres, but putting them on a highly intelligent, compassionate character like this one would be a super fun contrast. I didn't make them too big or noticeable because A, I didn't want them to overpower the rest of his details, and B, I wanted the tusk to be one of the elements you see when you've been looking at him for a while, like it's one of those details that you discover over time. But see how suddenly he's not just a human who was born with magic, he's also part creature. You could add other things like horns, a halo, scales, gills. The point is to just pick one, maybe two supernatural details and make sure you do it well, rather than overcrowding your character with too many elements. Here's another classic you can tack on. Remember how our mechanic guy has a giant chunk of his ear missing? What if we drew even more attention to it by giving him elf ears? Man, I've never seen an elf mechanic, because you'd think that as highly evolved creatures, their machines are perfect and they wouldn't need mechanics. What if there was a world-ending event though? An elf-pocalypse, if you will. And you will. And what if elves had to go back to a primitive lifestyle? Of course, to them, a primitive lifestyle would be what we see as cutting-edge technology, so there is that. But there we have it. Two characters that look so vastly different to the reference in like 4 steps. Now we can get a little more detailed by adding some discernment. Now that we understand how switching each detail up can give us a completely new and original character, let's take it a step further by using a bit of discernment. Instead of changing all 4 aspects in that order, we're going to try and make choices and also just let the painting itself lead. For this character, I really wanted to explore a sort of cyberpunk vibe, because that's a style I haven't really played with very much. I started by changing his hair up, giving him some braids. I left a little patch on his scalp because I thought maybe he could have some sort of futuristic device panel thing that is sort of fused into his head. Then I thought, hey, maybe his hair has bright red ends. For a moment I considered changing them to a bright blue, but it really wasn't hitting quite as nicely. So I switched it back to red, and this looks so much nicer. This is what I mean by letting the character take the lead in your painting. I swear I'm not delusional. They like to tell me what they want and what they don't. I briefly considered some eye makeup, but realized that actually a sort of virtual reality glasses type device might really bring the vibe. So I essentially just painted a dark frame and a translucent red panel inside it, then threw in some glowy details, kind of like if there were text and images on a screen. I thought maybe he could also have a sort of diagonal band under it, just to break up the skin above and below, so it's not just 3 horizontal sections stacked up. That's parallel repetition and it's boring on large shapes. Next, I gave him a massive jacket, still sticking with the red and black theme. What I love about cyberpunk is that there are so many tiny shapes that don't even have to make sense, but they give you that sort of overcrowded, overstimulated, dystopian look. Now, because we already have so much going on, I didn't do anything supernatural, nor did I give him skin details, just because I want all that weird, cool tech stuff to grab all the attention instead. And just for this one, I threw in a red background because it was calling my name. And here's our third and arguably best original character for today. Which iteration did you like best from today's video? Are there other variables you can think of that you could change around and come up with original characters every time? Comment below and let me know. And if you enjoyed this video and learned something today, please remember to give it a big thumbs up. And of course, like I said, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn your notifications on, because starting next week, we dive into the most wonderful time of the year. Come say hello on Instagram, Discord, and Kara. Links are in the description. And if you like what I do and would like to grab even more stuff, such as all of my speed paints from start to finish, all of my custom brushes and prints of my work, it is all up on Patreon. And by the way, you don't even actually have to be a paid member, because I am starting to roll out some freebies for everyone who follows me on Patreon. For instance, the entire Pinterest board that I'm using for references for my 100 Heads challenge is available to literally everyone who follows me on Patreon, paid or free. So yeah, if that's something you're interested in, I'll leave a link up here in the cards and down in the description. Go check it out. Alrighty, you guys, that's about everything for this video. So thank you so much for hanging out with me. I really hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. Last week we did a questionable art challenge. That was interesting to say the least. So if you missed it, you will definitely enjoy watching that video. I'll leave it here in the outro. Make sure you check it out, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye!